Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 243. Overall, I thought this was a, enjoyable episode without being anything particularly incredible. It was mostly set up in that we started with sort of figuring out the plan and that, oh, we need to go here and create a base to stop the, secret advance of the Fanato. And we basically just got there and dealt with setting up a base. Now, there was a few nice character things along the way that I thought, made this episode worthwhile and not just like forgettable like it maybe could have been. They used this time, I suppose, without action to actually build up a couple of the dynamics, mainly with the regards to just, I suppose, further moving along the path of the sort of redemption of the three swordsman characters that we have here, of Kyoho being quite useful, chopping down all the trees, and some of the villagers actually, being nice to him, and him kind of realizing that, if he continues his kind of path to redemption, rehabilitation, he has a nice life for himself afterwards. Similarly, with both Hebichigo and Buntan, you had kind of moments where they were more bonding with, other members of the team and kind of getting on quite well, working well together as they built the fortifications. Sarada praising Buntan for the strategy with the bridges, to cut them down. The more maybe leaning towards shipping moment between Hebichigo and Metal, which this is now the third scene, I think, in the arc of the two of them kind of together. Now they didn't go, the really obvious way you think they go with it, but then they later had the scene where she sits down and kind of sews his pants back together, which was actually a quite nice thing to do, I think, for that character, to reveal that arguably one of the characters who, at least in battle, comes across as the most sort of almost cruel, calculating with what she theoretically plans to do, is the one who in another life would have had sort of knitting and sewing as her kind of thing that she does. And obviously it relates to the fact that that is effectively what her ninja sword is, but she can also do the normal kind of art of that. So that was quite good. We also did bring up the idea of, wait, we're going into this major battle now. We've already earned sort of 3 years off our sentence. If you want us to continue and help you out, you'll need to do more for us. And Buntan does pretty much lay down the gauntlet here of saying that we want a complete acquittal, or we're not helping. And so it forces Kagura into a situation where he has to agree to this, and he does say he will negotiate with Chojuro for them. Now, a lot's going to depend on how exactly this comes across. They all sort of are okay, they trust that Kagura will try, but I think they're maybe doubtful of if he will be able to accomplish that. Their lack of trust is now, I think, just in the mist, in the decision makers, more so than Kagura. So that will be interesting to see how it happens, how much Kagura has to put himself on the line for them in the aftermath of this, because they seem to be teasing that the next episode is going to be maybe creating a little bit of a rift between the three ninja swordsmen over what happens, because right at the end of the episode, it does come out into the open that Hebichigo did try to kill Kagura. Now, we don't get it here, but it's heavily kind of covered in the little preview at the end that Buntan will be confronting Hebichigo about this, and that it looks like we're going to be delving more into, I suppose, Buntan's perspective of why she did what she did, and I guess why the three of them chose not to escape with their, previous leader. So that will be a very interesting one to see. That's I think with these three characters, that's kind of what I've been waiting for, is what caused these characters to sort of start their redemption arc in the first place. I like what they're doing with it now, but what started that in the first place? If they are so connected to their leader, why wouldn't they go with him? Why have they more kind of attached themselves onto Kagura here? That I do think is quite good and interesting going forward. Beyond that, the rest of the episode, like with regards to like the main characters, was mainly just kind of building kind of barricades out of the logs. They had a little kind of couple of scenes highlighting that the kids of the village seem to really latch onto Kawaki, and they're just making jokes about, oh wow, he's a popular guy here. He's getting all the kids around him, and obviously it's meant to create the dynamic of like he's kind of out of his depth around the kids. But then Boruto does bring up that like, oh yeah, Himawari was oddly drawn to him as well. So, that's a nice one. That they seem to be drawn to like his style in a way. Like, oh, like you've got cool hair. Are you a shinobi? More so than the others. So, I'm not sure what the dynamic is there. I think it's probably more meant to show that if not for the path that Kawaki was sort of like forced down, he might have been this just very different character who, you know, could have been this central character like in a village somewhere if things had gone better for him. But now that he's like had all this kind of dark, terrible things happen to him, he's now going down the path of like a shinobi, like that things are different, but that the core like nature that could have made him that person is still kind of coming out to a degree. And I suppose that might be what they do with the contrast between, I suppose, where the character is going versus like where the character theoretically could go, perhaps. But I'm probably reading too much into that. It was probably just meant to be some little fun moments with Kawaki. Because again, it is more or less Kawaki's first kind of big mission as a shinobi. So I do appreciate them doing little bits and pieces like this, in that he's kind of having a little bit of an arc. It's kind of similar to the Three Ninja Swordsmen, of like just interacting normally with the citizens of this village. So that's interesting. We just end with Seiren's lieutenant guy. He's leading the attack. So they haven't discovered that the bridges have been cut yet. So I'm guessing we'll get the attack come in halfway, maybe through the next episode. The episode did start, though, actually, with the battle at sea. Now, they didn't focus on it too much. They basically just got across the idea that the mist seemed to have the advantage, but it's all just like a plot to sort of stall them. That it's a distraction. The main information suggesting that the forces are here is actually a distraction, and that the Fanado have more kind of clever tactics employed, which is what our main characters are trying to do in terms of stopping the kind of ground forces advancing across the mountain. Beyond that, I think that's basically everything. Like, Boruto had a quick scene with Ikada's boss, just highlighting that he left, but Ikada's boss still has faith that boats are the things that Ikada cares about deep down. So whatever's happening here is a reaction to what happened to his sister, and that in most of the kind of good characters' minds, Ikada will make the right choice in the end, which I think is reasonable setup. It's a little frustrating after what happened that we didn't cut to them or to see Seiren. We didn't see like Sayamari or anyone like that. So they're still teasing like the action, and I don't even think next episode is necessarily going to be the start of like the heavy action. But I guess we'll have to get there eventually. The other main thing was Kagura's little backstory here, sort of highlighting that he grew up on this village. This is where he was sort of sent to sort of be out of the way. And he also had this very sort of isolated time here until the kids, you know, the two kind of main guys that he meets up with again in this episode, kind of just outstretch the hand to him and offer him the chance to play in the game. And so this is seen as the moment where his sort of life changed for the better, and they focus on the big tree in the village that he practices swordsmanship on as being this kind of, you know, symbol of like, this is a village he does care about, that changed the trajectory of his life, which was a nice thing to have. It means he is going to have a reason to fight as hard as possible in this battle to avoid damaging a lot of damage to this village. So it's one of those ones where like, there's actually a surprising amount of nice little character moment scenes in this episode that made it like very watchable, but there is a sense where you wish the pacing would just be a little bit stronger, that they maybe could have started the battle and had a couple minutes of action if they weren't so focused on sort of stretching things out for as long as they were. But you know, the arc is solid. I hope it can pay off well. That's kind of, I think, what I've been saying at the end of all of these ones, that, you know, when we finally get into properly revealing like the scope of like the Sea Dragon powers with Ikada, his father, and all that sort of stuff, pairing the characters off into the final battles, that's going to be strong, because I think they'll have good stuff for Kagura. They're going to give the likes of Boruto, Boruto, I guess, Kawaki is going to have, I suppose, a significant fight, I would guess, because it's his first mission. And then they might do some interesting things with regards to like how they incorporate the three ninja swordsmen into the fights. Did they get big fights of their own, or will they more have fights where they team up with one of the hero characters and sort of become a hero in the big final battle type thing? And this is the thing that fully completes their kind of arc of kind of redemption in a way. I think that feels kind of like the nice way to do things, where it's like Metal and Hebichigo fight side by side, Buntan and Sarada fight side by side, and then maybe who would they pair up with? Kyoho. Yeah, like I guess you know, the rest of Metal's team maybe with him, and do it that way. That roughly seems to kind of maybe be the pairings that they've kind of gone for over the course of this, in terms of who they've kind of latched different characters onto. But that has been my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one, 243. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.